So today I want to begin with the elephant in the room, the rather tiny elephant in the room, as it were. And that is, we need to start by talking about how, throughout history, artists have done our brother Zacchaeus dirty. They have done him dirty. You see, Zacchaeus, he was the original short king. He bears the distinction of being the only person in the Bible, the entirety of the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, the entirety of the Bible. He is the only one who is described for us as being vertically challenged. Now, according to archaeologists back in Jesus' day, the average height of a man was somewhere between 5'1" and 5'5". So if Luke is taking the time to comment on the fact that Zacchaeus is short, it is saying something. He probably was pretty short. But even so, that does not justify the rampant disrespect that artists have shown the guy over the years. They tend to depict him either like a child or like some Tom Thumb gremlin-looking thing in a tree. Here's what I mean. So Zacchaeus up in the tree, feeling kind of cute, isn't he? Right? This is a more tame one, but I don't even know where to begin with the proportions of this. Jesus is about the same size as a sycamore tree. I don't know what the artist was on. And here's this one. Zacchaeus up in the tree looks, to my eye, something like E.T. up there. I don't know what he looks like to you. And this one, a more impressionistic work, but even so, Zacchaeus is depicted as a baby with a beard sitting in a branch. And then we have this one. That's actually not a historical work. That's ChatGPT made that for us. But it gets the point across, right? It gets the point across. But for all the disrespect that artists have shown Zacchaeus over the millennia, that disrespect is in fact nothing in compare to the disrespect shown to Zacchaeus by his own community. Now, here's what I mean by that. Our passage this morning tells a story about a time that Jesus and his entourage, the 12 disciples, they walked into the town of Jericho. And as they were making their way through the town, a big crowd started pressing in around them. And when Zacchaeus got word that this famed teacher and healer was in the town, he too wanted to catch a glimpse of him. But rather than working his way through the crowd, he immediately went and he climbed a sycamore tree up ahead of where Jesus was going. He climbed up in the branches so that when Jesus passed by, he'd be over there looking at him and smiling down. Now, let's be clear on this point. That is a very weird thing to do. Zacchaeus, he is a grown man. Not only that, he is a man of significant means. So one would think that the normal thing for him to do would be to go up to the crowd and say, "Excuse me, pardon me, can I scooch through here in order to see?" He is significantly short, so he needs to be up front to see, so I don't think anyone would hold that against him. But Zacchaeus doesn't do that, does he? He heads straight for that sycamore tree. So why does he do something weird like that? Well, we're actually told why in the first few sentences of our story this morning, when we were told that A, Zacchaeus is a tax collector, and B, that he had grown very wealthy from that occupation. You see, so being a tax collector back in Jesus' day wasn't a normal 9-to-5 job that you'd go to and you get a paycheck every week. The way it worked is that every so often the Roman government would auction off contracts that would give someone the right to collect taxes in a specific area for a specific period of time. So for example, if you and I went to this auction, maybe we could get the rights to collect taxes from all the people on North Street for the period of 3 years. So in this system, after the Roman government had auctioned off those contracts, they made all the money they were going to get. So the goal of the tax collector was to recoup all the money they put out for buying that contract and make a little more on top for profit. And the way they did that was by adding their own exorbitant fees on top of the taxes that they were collecting from their neighbors. So when we're told that Zacchaeus grew wealthy from being a tax collector, what that means is that he grew wealthy at the literal expense of his neighbors. He was essentially extorting money from them. So why did he climb that sycamore tree? He climbed that sycamore tree because he knew that his community wasn't going to let him through. At best, he'd be walking out of that situation with a concussion from all the elbow shots he'd be taken to his head. And he still wouldn't have gotten through to see Jesus. That's how hated he was by his community. Ergo, he went and he climbed that sycamore tree. And good thing he does, because Jesus was actually delighted to see him. So delighted, in fact, that he actually invited himself over to Zacchaeus' house for dinner that night. Apparently, that's a perk of being Son of God. You can invite yourself over to people's houses, and it's not considered rude. Now, for my money, the interesting part of this story is not in Zacchaeus' personal transformation, dramatic though it was, with his willingness to pay back fourfold all the money he had extorted from his neighbors. And rather, for me, the interesting part of the story has to do with the fact that this community, because of the judgments it had made about Zacchaeus, fair though they were, because Zacchaeus had done some rotten things to them, but because of those judgments, this community felt justified in getting in the way. They felt justified in standing between Zacchaeus and Jesus. Right? They didn't like him, so they weren't going to let him get up close. But newsflash, even though they didn't care for him much, Zacchaeus was still a person that Jesus loved, and his encounter with Jesus changed him for the better. Which begs the question for us, I think, are there people out there that we, as a community, we as a church, that we are all too happy to keep away from Jesus because of the judgments that we hold about them, beloved children of God though they are? I mean, I think the obvious one here is that there are not a lot of red hat wearers who come to this church, at least more than once. And does that have to do with the fact that we tend to preach a fairly radically inclusive gospel of love here that is probably not to the taste of about 90% of MAGA folks? For sure, that has something to do with it. But is it also because when they come in this room, they pick up on the vibe that we're kind of looking down on them and maybe perceive them to be less worthy of God's love than we ourselves are? Probably. I'm pretty snide up here, so yeah, they're probably picking up on that vibe. We may not physically elbow them out like Zacchaeus' community would, but no less are we getting in the way. No less are we getting between them and Jesus when they come into this building. And so you may be thinking, sure, Zacchaeus was a crook, but at least he wanted to change, right? He was open to that personal transformation in a way that we perceive most MAGA folks as not being. But I want to share with you a modern story that speaks to me of this moment a little bit. So there's a comedian by the name of Gianmarco Soresi. Has anyone heard of him? He's not famous, but he's internet famous. Like he does a lot of crowd work, so his reels and shorts are kind of popular. But he shares a story that there's a story he likes to share about a conservative friend of his. And he describes his conservative friend as one of those people who is like constantly on Facebook sharing articles about how like a trans woman joined a swim team and she jumped in the water and everybody exploded. Like right-wing clickbait sort of articles he's always sharing. But Soresi says that while his views are quite frankly abhorrent, they're just awful, he is actually a very good person. And that's tricky because we usually act as though holding the right views makes you a good person, but it's not really that simple. And so he likes to share a story about the time that they were out walking in New York City, and up ahead of them, they saw a woman who was very apparently a trans woman. As they're walking along, she trips and she falls into the street. And just at that moment, here comes a bus bearing down at her. And without even thinking of it, before he could even blink, this conservative friend of Soresi, he runs, risks his life, grabs her out of the road, scoops her up, sets her back on the sidewalk, stands her up, makes sure she's okay, and sends her on her way. And as he's there kind of catching his breath, he mutters under his breath to Soresi, and that's why men shouldn't wear heels. Right? Awful thing to say, absolutely awful thing to say. But what Soresi points out is that if it was just him sitting there on the sidewalk, he would have stood there frozen and then just shouted, "Oh no, she's dead." He would have nailed the pronouns, but he would have been of no actual help to her whatsoever. So who is the better person in that situation, right? It's not nearly as simple as we normally like to believe. And I think that's the point. The crowd thought that Zacchaeus didn't deserve to see Jesus, and the community judged him by the very worst things that he had done in his life, and so they closed ranks and they kept him at arm's length. And I think Soresi's story shows us that we still do the same thing today. We like to write people off as too far gone, as not our kind, as holding the wrong views. And we assume that God could not possibly be at work in and through their lives. But Jesus likes to surprise us. He keeps showing up where we least expect it. He shows up in a greedy tax collector scrambling up a tree, and he shows up in a conservative friend who risked his life to save another. So here's our invitation today. Our invitation is not to be that kind of crowd. Don't be the elbows in the way. Be people who make space. Because the truth is, no one is beyond the reach of God's love. And if we can loosen our grip on our judgments just a little bit, we might discover that the very people who we thought were furthest away from God are actually just waiting for us to step aside so that they can finally see Jesus too. In Jesus' name, may it be so.